What's going on, everybody? My name is Ray Rodriguez, and we just filmed an amazing episode with Zasha Smith, also known as Invest with Zasha on social media. She talks about her upbringing from growing up dirt poor to becoming a multi-millionaire in just 3 years. She goes into her net worth, how much money she's made this year, how many rental properties she owns, and what her plans are for the future. So, with that being said, let's cut right into the podcast. So, Zasha, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to just come and film this podcast with me. And I got to say, I'm extremely honored because just a couple days ago, we were at Ryan Pineda's mastermind, and our good mutual friend Gabe came up to me and he was like, "Hey, Zasha said she'd like for you guys to film a podcast together sometime this week. Do you have time?" I'm like, "No, but I'll make time." If it's Zasha, because you've been a good friend of me for a couple years now, and we both met in Ryan's program when it was still a very small program. So just seeing your growth, not only as an investor, but on social media and as a person, has been crazy these last couple years. So as your friend, Zasha, I just want to say I'm extremely proud of everything I've seen you accomplish these last couple of years.
And same here. I mean, I love to elevate with other people who are like minded. And I feel like you already had that drive. We connected not only on an investor level, but also on a friendship level, because I feel like people want to do business or want to do things that, get to the next level with people that they like. And so I like you, you like
Oh,
me.
no,
But
of
it's
course.
very, I feel like with this business and it's just anything in life, like it's best to be genuine and you'll connect with the right people that way.
I agree 100%. So, speaking about being genuine and connecting with the right people, start us off with your background. Where were you before you were at today? I'm sure you weren't born into a rich family, or maybe you were. Well, I mean, I know your background, but just for the people watching this, right? How did Zasha Smith become Invest with Zasha, with over 100,000 followers on social media, with multiple $1 million to her net worth? Can you just kind of touch on your story a little bit?
Yeah. So I grew up with a single mom and had helped with my brother and my sister. We lived in low income housing. We went through everything from cancer through foreclosure. We moved multiple times. I probably every single year moved to someplace different, oftentimes changing schools. And I was raised in Maui in Hawaii, which is a very expensive place to live. And so I seen my mom working multiple jobs, had to, help with my brother and my sister, and I didn't mind any of that. But at the same time, that built a lot of strength and perseverance because I knew I was constantly shifting. And then I was also mindful of money. So I've always been kind of not necessarily frugal, but aware of expenses and income. And I remember, when I was growing up, my mom used to make us balance the checkbook because we would often ask, like, "Hey, mom, can we have this or this?" She's like, "No, we literally have no money here. I'm going to have you guys start balancing the checkbook so that you could see how much money I actually have. Okay, do you want clothes or do you want to eat tonight?" So that's kind of like the mentality that I had when I was younger. And it was funny because when you're young, you don't really think too much into things, but we were always looking for ways to help our mom or make extra money. So we would ask her to buy us like candies from the Costco and go sell it at school, or we would have car washes or garage sales of our older clothes and try to sell that to help her. So we were always, mindful of money. And I feel like nowadays that's the whole thing is people are so concerned about their financial journey or financial independence. And that's a real thing. However, I never really had to think about it because it was always ingrained in me. Like when you grow up with little to no money, then you definitely are aware of every single cent that you spend.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate you touching on that because obviously you're considered, by society standards as someone who is rich nowadays. And a lot of people who aren't in the business or in business in general have the myth, implanted in their brain that, oh, if you're born rich, that's pretty much the only way to become rich unless you hit the lottery or you marry into a rich family or something like that. But clearly your story is a true rags to riches story, right?
It is. And so even living in the low income housing taught me a lot about how to approach life and relationships and just really even building out your network because a lot of times I didn't have a ride to school or, I was taking my brother and my sister to school, but never had a computer. So it always taught me to like, not necessarily use people, but like make friends with the people that had these things that I never grew up with. And even for my teachers, like I got to give a shout out to Mr. Gima, who was my video editing teacher. He used to let me take home, they had those Apple computers with the colored backs. He used to let me take it home because he knew I never had a computer or access to one. And I used to put my all into doing extra work because I loved video editing when I was in high school. And it was just that little bit of faith that kind of got me through. And even when I was in my senior year of high school, he was like, hey, are you going to go to college? And I said, oh, I can't afford college. And that was back before they had, not that I'm that old, but they didn't really have college fairs and that much information about college out. So I was like, I'm not that rich. Like I can't afford to go to college. And so him and my high school counselor came together. They're like, hey, they both had $25 at that time. The application fee was $50. They're like, we'll put in, $50 for one application fee so you can choose whatever college that you want to apply to. And then they also helped me get into the scholarships and apply for those because I was the first person from my family that actually graduated from college. So it was something new to everybody and we had no idea what that would look like. But I think because I was I had a really good work ethic ever since I was young, that he noticed that and he knew I was built for more. And coming from a small island, I love Maui. I still live there to this day. However, it's like you got to be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer to be able to afford to live there. Mm-hmm. And so they knew that. They knew I would put in the work and had the potential to do way more than what I was doing and just working at, a bookstore there, or there's this place called Spencer's Gifts that I worked at in high school, just like glow in the dark stuff at the mall. But they knew I was meant for more. And so I think that's another testament to like pay attention to those people that you run into in your life that believe in you or give you that confidence to do more because they see it and you might not see it, but following their guidance, you can definitely accomplish way more in your life than you ever thought.
I think that's phenomenal advice. And we're both very grateful for some of the people in our lives who have kind of given us that push, or not even a push sometimes, but maybe just a helping hand. Like it sounds like your teacher and your counselor did. And, they put together $50 for you to be able to step through another door, just for you to not use your degree anymore.
I know.
Yeah. So talk to us about that a little bit, right? So, tell us what you did in college, what you majored in, how long you worked in that profession, and how that went for you, and what eventually made you dive into real estate. Can you touch on all that a little bit?
Yeah. So once I got to college, I actually chose, at that time, my senior year, a bunch of colleges weren't accepting applications at that point. And so all the state universities were still doing it. And I wanted to get away. I wanted to get off the rock. If you're from an island, we say that we want to get off the rock, experience something new. And so California was the closest place, and it had the most likely weather that I was already used to. It was a little bit more cooler, but had the beach vibes too. So I was looking, I was like, okay, Cal State, there's a San Diego, there's like Long Beach. I was like, oh, Long Beach, that's where Snoop Dogg is from. So that's literally how I picked the one college I went to. But I was so grateful because that college had a daycare on campus. And during my second year of college, I ended up having my first child. And so I would like ride the, what is it called? The beach cruiser.
I don't know. I'm from Vegas. I wouldn't know.
So I bought a beach cruiser and I had a little baby seat in the back, and I would ride my beach cruiser to class and then drop her off at daycare, go to class, and then pick her up and ride back home. So I never really seen anything as a downfall. And she actually gave me more of a, drive to actually want to finish, because I wanted her to, have a good life. And I knew that if I dropped out, I didn't want to repeat any sort of cycles. And so I ended up persevering through that, because it's hard, right? When you have a child, especially when you're going to school, whatever level you're at, it's just one other thing to coordinate. And like even doing homework and getting minimal sleep, it was difficult. But we luckily had one of our family members move in with me to just kind of help me. And at that point, I was a single mom as well, and just trying to manage everything. But I was working at the College of Engineering during the day in between classes as a counselor, because I thought I wanted to go into psychology, or I really wanted to help people. And my boss, it was in the College of Engineering, and she was like, why don't you start, why don't you become an engineer? And I was like, I'm not smart enough. She was like, you're already helping these people with their homework and, giving them the boost that they need in order to continue with their degree. And I was like, okay, I'll take a class, but if I don't like it, then, I'm just going to go my route. And so that's another instance where I had somebody kind of guiding me or pushing me or seeing more potential. I did that, ended up graduating in 5.5 years with my bachelor's in civil engineering. And from there, we moved home. I was working, I thought I made it because I was like, I'm an engineer, I can definitely survive in an expensive market. But it wasn't necessarily something I wanted to do. It was just I knew if I did that, I could afford to live in an expensive market. And so after that, I worked for 10 years and I was working like 60 to 70-hour weeks. I was away from my kids now that I had 2 kids and I was married. It was very difficult to manage that and be present for my kids. And I think that was the biggest thing that my husband kind of reminded me, like, hey, like money is good and like working is good. I know you want to do your best, especially when you had deadlines and things like that. But like you're never home, you're not really present, and we miss you. And so that kind of was like stake to the heart, like, okay. Yeah. And he didn't mind like, doing Mr. Dad stuff, like showering the kids, making them dinner. But it came to a point where I would just like, I remember the quote that he told me was like, we're getting like, they're getting the best of you, we're getting the rest of you. Ooh. And that was like crazy to hear.
That gave me chills.
I know.
And it wasn't even said to me.
Right. And so it's like, and then typically it's the dad who is like, oh, it's a workaholic and always away. But it was like different for me and him. And so that's when I started Googling and I was like, oh, okay, how to get rich and quit your job, or like, some, just silly stuff like that. And that led me to real estate. And I was like, man, it was so hard just to buy our own house. And our first house was actually a fixer-upper. And it was so hard just to qualify for that. I was like, how are we going to buy a rental? Or like, how are these people doing this? And that led me to bigger pockets. And then from there, I bought my first rental, my first flip. My first flip, I made 103 net, which using pure logic was crazy at that time but if it's crazy because, you could join all this stuff, you learn all this stuff, people get analysis paralysis. But for me, maybe because I already had that mindset of like, I was used to worksheets and spreadsheets. I was used to working with contractors. I mean, on a bigger scale, I was developing shopping centers and subdivisions and things on a huge scale. But I was like, okay, if one home in that area sold for $475, that was just like it, and then this one's for sale for $300, it was in foreclosure, then I mean, there must be some sort of spread in the between. Right. It can't cost that much to fix it up and then make money. So I think I just used pure logic in the beginning, but I was also like meeting contractors at Lowe's on my lunch break. I was going to meet them at the jobs after work on the weekends. I even like drove one of their trucks that was like full of trash. They're like, oh, we're going to go to the dump soon. And so I was like, oh, I can drive it to the dump. Like just ridiculous things that I didn't need to do, right, that I was just there all the time because I thought, okay, maybe I'll save some money or I'll save some time to them. Maybe they'll move faster. And so I mean, I was gone even more when I was working full time while starting to invest. And from there, it just was like, I got to do something different. I got to get some systems and processes in place. Like there's got to be an easier way to do this because I couldn't do both at the same time. And that's when I ended up joining Ryan Pineda's mentorship. And he kind of was the same way as my teacher in high school, as my supervisor in college, who I was working for as a counselor. And now Ryan was like, dude, you need to quit your job. I was like, what? My health insurance? He was like, how much is your health insurance? I was like, oh, I think like $1,700 or $1,800 a month. He was like, bro, you just made $100,000 in 45 days. Like you can afford to quit and just like figure it out along the way.
What were you making as an engineer per year?
70,000.
Okay, so yeah, if you made $100,000 in 45 days versus 70 and 365, yeah, I can see where the logic comes from. Now, tell us a little bit, right? How did you fund that first flip? Did you use your own money from engineering? Like, talk to us about that for the people watching who are like, hey, I don't have engineer money. How can tell us a little bit. How did you do that?
So initially, I did use a conventional loan. So that's when you go to a bank, you let them know you want to try to qualify to buy an investment property. And because I had a good job and my husband was making good money, we qualified for that. We had to put 20% down. But I did not know that you are not supposed to flip using a conventional loan. So that was a learning experience. My banker never gave me a loan after that. So now I use a lot of private money and hard money because that's the way to go. However, when you're first starting out, I just took action like right away. I seen something that looked like a deal and I was like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure out how to do this.
And I think that's a huge reason as to why you've been so successful, because you have that mindset that's like, hey, I may not know all of the next steps, but as long as I can take down the step that's right in front of me, I'll eventually figure out the one that goes after that. And just like you said, sure, we're not supposed to flip with conventional or FHA loans, but you technically didn't do anything illegal.
Right.
So, and
they
and
just
it
don't
worked
get
out.
paid. That's why they get
Exactly.
upset.
Yeah. I just recently learned that maybe like 6 months ago that,
I know.
and I was like, oh geez. But I haven't flipped with a conventional loan, but just for my lender, I won't do that to him.
Yeah.
Or maybe I will if you're watching this. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, so no, I think that is the stuff that you shared is it's going to hit home with a lot of people, hit home with me as well. I didn't come from a rich family or anything, and your story is a lot similar to mine. You left off saying that you joined the coaching program with Ryan and all that stuff. How has that been for you, and how did that kind of impact your career?
I think more so just him having confidence in me and also having other people that I could depend on or run to or ask questions with. And honestly, most of my deals I do are with other people in this mentorship or in other ways that I've networked and met. And so when I met Ryan, I had my first flip done. I had my first rental and I was looking for a better way to kind of scale. So once I joined his mentorship, and I also quit my job in January of 31st, 2020. Probably not the best time to quit your job, but who would have known,
COVID,
right?
Yeah.
Right before shit hit the fan. But I feel like in that moment, I had already joined the mentorship and I already had a network of people that I could rely on and be like, okay, from there, I switched to buying multifamily, just concentrated on rentals. And then, once COVID kind of lifted, I started flipping, partnering with people, and that has allowed me to scale to where I'm at now.
That's amazing. So when you joined the program, you said you had already done your first flip, you had your first rental, and this was roughly 2.5 years ago when you joined, right?
2019, yeah.
Yeah. So, obviously you have more than one rental and have done more than one flip now. What does your portfolio look like? How many rentals do you have? Like, how's all that looking like?
So right now I have 9 long-term rentals and one
Crazy.
short-term rental
Wow.
on Maui. And so my portfolio itself is probably worth $3.8 million. And I have done in the past, since 2019, I've done 17 flips. I've made over $1 million from that. I'm currently have 7 flips that are either in renovation phase or under contract. And then I also have an RV park that I partnered with and we're raising money for as well. And there's going to be 45 pads on it, 15 glamping sites, like a pool, just like it's right across the lake. It's in Branson, Missouri. So in the Ozarks, if you guys ever watch that show, you should, because it's crazy. So I have a different form of income if
Nice.
ever that wasn't to work out.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you said you're starting this RV park stuff and
Yeah.
you're raising money for it. For the people watching who they're like, yeah, I want to invest with Zasha. That's literally what your name is. How can someone invest with you, and what does investing with you look like?
So there's different ways. Say you have a deal and the numbers are really good, but you need somebody with experience because you don't feel confident taking it on your own, or you need a capital partner, so somebody to help raise the money in order to close the deal and you guys, make a good amount of money itself. Or you could passively invest in my projects. Say you have money in your savings or money in your 401k or in the stocks that's losing money. You could invest with me in my projects and make a guaranteed basically return on your money. And that's, real estate has been such a secure asset. And given that I already have this portfolio, I have, a good amount of money in the bank that you don't have to worry if you invest with me. I always make sure that my investors get paid. I haven't, I've always made money on my deals so far. Knock, knock.
Yeah, knocking
But
something. There's some wood right here.
So regardless, though, I would never go into a deal and not pay back my money, people. I want to continue that relationship. And also everything I do, I keep above the board. I keep, my morals and integrity in place. I do things with the right intentions. And I feel that kind of sets me apart from other people who are just about the profit. And some ways that I tell people that they can give back or they can add value to other people, whether it's the seller and he's going through a rough time. It's like I've paid for sellers, their security deposit to move out to a rental. I've paid for 6 months of their rent. I've paid for pods for them to help them move, because a lot of times they don't have money. Or if you're keeping the property as a rental, you could rent to somebody on rental assistance or Section 8 or Catholic Charities and help them that way. Or if you're flipping a project, you could sell to a first-time home buyer, or maybe work with somebody that's not the highest offer, but they really need the place, or they really love the home, then you could give back that way. So there's many ways that, like, it doesn't need to be necessarily monetary, but keeping in mind those people that might not get a chance elsewhere to either live in a home or buy a home.
Yeah, and I think that's great that you've just brought that up, because a lot of people on camera, they'll say stuff like that, but that's not actually the way that they live. And I know that's not the case with you, because, and I want you to touch on this a little bit. Not too long ago, you were sharing with me a story of one of your flips, and I believe it was a hedge fund. They offered you cash, but then a local family, I think they were like an FHA or a conventional buyer, and their offer wasn't as appealing as the hedge fund. Whereas most people would have gone with the cash hedge fund all day. You decided to go with this family who didn't really have much of a choice, and I think that's very admirable of you. Can you touch on that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think because a lot of times I invest all over the US now, but a lot of times I take into consideration the community where I'm investing in. Say it is a fix and flip, or say it is a rental. For this instance, it was a fix and flip. It was a family, a young family, and they wanted to take care of their mom. So it was a multifamily property, and she was going to live in the studio. They're going to live in the main house. We had a cash offer that was probably $25,000 over their offer. However, I just had a really good feeling about these people. And, now they say, don't write the letters and put your whole
Right.
thing, do that. Like, keep doing it. If your realtor doesn't want to show, or whatever the case may be, I feel like I would want to know who's moving to these homes,
For
because
sure.
a lot of times it seems like a big system, or, a big business, but it's really not. You're still in touch with, like, okay, who are we putting this out for? What are we doing? Who's inquiring about, like, how many inquiries did we get about this property? How many offers did we get? What does that look like? And so for me, whenever the offers come in, I look at everything. And for this family, like, they couldn't afford, I think they had put in like maybe like 40 or 50 offers prior to that.
Wow.
So they were getting beaten down. And I knew the realtor who was actually on the buyer's end. So he approached me separately. So if you have a really good agent, they'll do this and try to, if they have a relationship to you, let you know, like, hey, this family really needs this home, or they deserve it, and this is why. So I always like to hear the backstory of where people are coming from. But in this instance, it was young family. They're going to take care of their mom, and they had got a really good loan. However, they ended up, their rate lock expired because they were looking for so long.
Yeah.
So they went from 2.75% to 5.25, and they're buying almost $1 million property. So their mortgage went up $1,000. So we went through 9 extensions through the lender, and just like back and forth trying to make it work for them. And we ended up closing with them, and they were just so thankful. And for me, I typically don't meet the buyers. I'll see all these things about them, but they really wanted to meet me. I went to the home the day that they were moving in. They gave me a lei. They were just like so ecstatic and happy that I gave them that chance to own their first home. That's really what drives me and keeps me going, and really inspires me to let other people know, like, hey, there are investors out there, yes, that, doing things for money. And of course we have to make a profit. However,
Right.
it's like, to what point, how much profit do you have to make, and how much do you want to give back? You have a choice to do either of those things.
I agree with you, and I respect you so much for that, because most people would not walk away from making an extra $25,000.
Yeah.
I mean, we take a lot of risk in this business. I mean, we take on a bunch of debt. We there's a lot of uncertainty, and especially in the market that we're in now. So props to you. And just a couple days ago, God blessed you with a more than $25,000 gift in the form of a Ryan Pineda. So, and you're not wearing it today, but what? Tell us a little bit about that. What did you get on stage the other day?
Yeah, so I went to the mastermind. I was totally not expecting anything, and they Ryan brought me on stage and Brian Davila, and they gifted me with a Rolex. And so he was like, "Oh, you didn't really, respond." And I was like, "Oh yeah, it's a watch. Like I shop at Ross, so maybe it's like $200." And he's like, "No, it's like it's up there. It's pretty expensive." So I had no idea, but I felt just super grateful and blessed because I had been in the program since they started the coaching, and a lot of the people in the business now feel like family, right? I feel like I can call on them at any time because when you get in this industry, a lot of people don't understand the stresses that you go through, the things that you have to, daily, even mindset wise, like remind yourself that you have the confidence you can push through, because a lot of times you're dealing with a lot of money and people, your friends and family might not also understand that. And so things that you want to go and celebrate with people that you love, they don't understand, like I was on Bigger Pockets, I got invited to my mastermind, and things that not everybody gets to do, I've done. And so it's just great that you have that network of people or that circle that understands that, and you can wholeheartedly share your wins or your losses and kind of relate not only on, like I said, on a business level, but then also on a personal level.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's honestly one of my favorite things about the coaching program. I mean, don't get me wrong, I learned so much about real estate investing just from being in the program, but knowledge without a community to me is not that valuable. Like you said, people in the program genuinely feel like family, because my family, they're not very entrepreneurial. They're great people and I love them. My dad has a car flipping business and whatnot, but like you just said, a lot of times you're going through stuff and your family won't understand. And so just having those people who you can call and just vent to and they can give you advice, it's like a freaking therapy. Like,
It
and
is.
it's needed, because there's no way, at least for me personally, there's no way I could go through like some of the stuff that I go through in my own head, like on my own. It's insane. And the fact that you brought that up as well, I can't talk right now, but I resonate with that so well, because that's exactly what it really feels like. And I'm sure, there's not a lot of women in Future Flipper. Well, there's a lot more now than there were, just 6, 12 months ago. But it must be, and I'm just assuming here, but it must be a little tougher for a woman being in like an environment mainly dominated by men. So just to see how well you're crushing it, and actually touch on that. Is it tougher? Like, is it discouraging, or do people put you down, or how is that?
I think you just have to be a little bit more strong minded and strong willed to push past anything that is said to you in, like, sly comments or things like that. But for me, I was a civil engineer for 10 years, so it
Right.
was mainly men. So going into being an investor wasn't really a change as far as who was around me. And for me, I like to connect with people and I like to know who they are. That's what I focus on, and not really dollar amount or other things like that. I like to connect with other people who are genuine or truly have like a good heart from what I can tell, or good intentions. And so my focus isn't that. And even when I went to this mastermind a couple of weeks ago, that was people own thousands of units and like older men, but really deep down they weren't happy at home or they were having issues. And I don't know, because I'm a woman, they were able to like express that with me, and maybe not in their circle, they can't really, because it's mainly male dominated. But I feel like that's where I kind of come in and add value that way, even though I don't own that much. My whole thing is quality over quantity. So whenever I do deals, like even though I only own 10 rentals, it's netting $10,000 a month. The gross is 26,000,
Wow.
and my portfolio is worth $3.8 million. So even though I only have 10, it's like it really equates to a lot more if you're to buy in another market or looking for cash flow or even appreciation. Like I have the best of both worlds in my portfolio now. But as I scale, I'm learning that the difference is like you're going to be way less hands off. You can rely on your partners to do a lot of things, and you can scale quicker in that sense and into different asset classes. So that's why I started to go the RV route, because it's more like transient and it's more like running a business, right? And an RV park, you can have the RV sites, you can have glamping, you can have a camp store, a laundromat, like you can have multiple things, rentals for it. So the one that we bought is by a lake. So we're going to put out some rentals, and just so many ways, different ways that you can increase your revenue without having to like build anything more.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you touched on that a little bit earlier with what you're looking to do with the RV parks and whatnot. So everything that you do, what's your ultimate goal? Is it, do you want to be financially free, or, I mean, who doesn't, right? But but why do you do like what you do? What are you trying to accomplish here?
So for me, I think the goal is really to be hands off, be able to travel more, be able to work less. Like now, I can't stop thinking about work, but it's because I'm so motivated, and I know I've seen the results in the last 3 years. I've, gained so much momentum that it's hard to not think about it. But I want to be able to just travel anywhere where with my family, hang out with really cool people, be able to build businesses with other people, and really just not worry about the business itself, be more hands off and be more of a visionary of things.
Love that. Do you have a number in mind where it's like, okay, when I have this much in my bank account, or when I have this much monthly cash flow coming in, at that point, I'll finally feel more comfortable just kind of taking my foot off the gas a little bit and doing all these things it is that I want to do? Like, is there a number in mind that when that happens, that's when you'll start, cooling off a little bit, or what do you think?
So before, that number was $10,000 a month, and I hit that goal, and I'm still like, maybe I could do a little bit more, but it's mainly, especially because of inflation, you gotta
Yeah, true.
2 times that number. But so I think my new goal now is to try to hit at least $20,000 a month in net cash flow. So that's different than gross. A lot of people don't realize that gross is everything coming in. Net is after all expenses, emergencies and safety. That's what you walk away with. So I think once I get to 20, I'll be okay. But honestly, it's more about the amount of time that I have to put in. So everybody, who's older and has all this money is like, I wish I had more time. So it's learning how to balance everything. And I think right now I'm focusing more on networking. I could be doing a lot more deals, but my goal is to make more connections and get into bigger things that are more hands off, so I have more time.
That makes a lot of sense. So if I understood you correctly, once you're bringing in 20 a month just from passive, completely passive and residual, at that point, you'll feel more comfortable just kind of taking your foot off the gas.
I mean, I'm always on the gas.
That's what I thought you were going to say. And it's because I hear that with every entrepreneur, and even myself as a way smaller entrepreneur than you, Pineda, and all those other people. I remember when I was 18, which was just like 4 years ago, I was like, wow, if I could make like 70 grand a year, I'll be really, really happy. And then, I'm having like $70,000 months, and I'm like, ugh, could be better. So it's like in my mind, it just never ends. So that's why I was asking you, like, hey, I'm kind of playing devil's advocate with you, because I remember a year ago you told me when I get to 10 grand a month, then I'll be able to cool off. And then you said you were at 10 grand a month, and you're nowhere near cooling off, which I wouldn't want you to. I think you have so much potential. So I was just curious. But just from knowing you, I really think that when you get to $100,000 a month, you're still going to be working really hard, just because you don't give me the vibe of a person who can. You're not going to feel satisfied with yourself by not trying to be better. And I think that's very admirable. Obviously, I think you're very good at managing your work and your life, and you've gotten so much better at that, especially after your husband gave you that quote that you gave us earlier. But I can foresee you making $1 million a month, in the next couple years. And I still think you'll be working hard, but definitely working less hard than you are now, because you're going to want to enjoy all that money, I'm sure.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about social media, because you've grown on social media so quickly, and we're even live streaming this right now, and I see people just blowing up the comment sections, all your fans, and I'm a huge Invest with Zasha fan myself. But just a year ago, I remember you called me, and I was with Roham. We were just having lunch, and you were at 5,000 followers on Instagram, and you told me, hey, by the end of the year, I want to get to 10,000 followers. And now, less than a year later, you're at 110,000 followers. So tell us, like, just touch on that. Just go ahead.
I think just being more consistent and sharing your story. So when I first started sharing on social media, I was very much filtering a lot, and I was scared to show or share that much about myself just because I didn't know, who was out there or what they wanted to hear. And now, especially growing up when money is so short, you grow up with none or little to no money, and now you're making a lot of money. It's uncomfortable for you to talk about it. So I think it was, the mindset, but getting over that fear of money that helped me to grow and be like, yeah, I made this much and this is how. So it's not like only, balling with the Rolex or a nice car. It was more so, this is what I did. You can do it too. This is the steps that I took, and really educating your audience on how they could get to where you're at. And so that's kind of how I grew, and being consistent with posting, really taking into consideration that when you share things, it's not really about you, it's
Right.
about your audience. And so once I flipped that mindset and mind frame, even with public speaking, I hate public speaking, but
You do
I'll
great.
do it.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'll do it because I know that that's what it will inspire so many people, and I'll help touch so many other people's lives. That for me, it's always been like, I'm just getting through life, or I'm just making it to the next level. And I really just don't even take time to recognize it. But when you do take a step back and you realize, oh my gosh, I did a lot. And then this is how I'm going to share with my audience how they can do it too. Then reversing that and thinking about the audience versus you, I think will help you to grow, because people will see, oh, she cares. And I genuinely do care. And that's what it shows. Like now I'm, partnering on 7 different projects with newbies or people that are so scared to do their first deal, or even experienced investors that are like, oh, we're running short. If you can help us just raise this much, we'll give you this. And so I think it's just finding like those win-win solutions. But when I partner with newbies, it feels so good to know like I'm helping them with their first deal. And if they go on and move on and do their own deals after that, I'm like rooting for them. I'm cheering for them, because I was able to be the one to give them the confidence like other people have given me along the way, to be able to continue on this journey that is truly, I think, is the best way to build wealth.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad you brought that up as well. I feel like I'm glad you brought everything up because that kind of resonates with me and how I started. I remember when I was a newbie, and again, I still consider myself to be really small in this whole business game, but I was afraid to go flip houses. So I ended up partnering with Ryan Pineda. He was like, hey, dude, I flipped like 500 homes now. I know exactly what to do. Go bring me a deal and we'll partner on it. I'll bring all the money and I'll show you what to do. And I said, okay, fine. And, I started looking for deals, and we partnered together on a lot of deals. This year, we've done maybe 30 deals together. So I really admire hearing you say that you're open to working with newbies and teaching them, and that you're not going to be handcuffing them if they want to do their own thing. Because once I told Ryan, hey, man, I really appreciate you and I want to do my own thing, he was the exact same way. He was like, hey, I'm so grateful for everything that we've done together, and I understand you want to do your own thing. So just being surrounded with people like yourself and Ryan, who genuinely want to see other people succeed and just bring the best out of other people. It's just, it says a lot about the community that we're in, and about individuals like yourself and him, and pretty much everyone in the program. I mean, everyone's just so selfless and giving, and I love that.
Right. And if it can be a win-win for both of us, we can
Yeah.
both make money. Why not have that abundance mindset? Like I remember when I first started and I was going to like really competitive ways to get leads was like the auctions, right? It's like you're at the auction house. It's like you versus me. Everybody is like really standoffish. And I remember trying to ask some of the other investors questions. They wouldn't even talk to me. And so to come from that and see that, but then decide I'm going to be different from all these other people. Like I'm going to try to help other people, because it only can come back to me. And like you said, even with Ryan and Brian and this mentorship, I help them not only to benefit, other people, but also to build that relationship with them. And now they're rewarding me. Things are coming back to me that I never expected. But I think if you do things with a whole heart, or you have the right intentions when you go into partnerships and build businesses with people, then they see that and things will come back to you.
I agree with that 100%. And sometimes you might have to take a little bit less up front.
Yeah.
But when you have the right intention, it always just comes back full circle. I've seen people screw other people out in business, and it always comes back and bites you. Like whatever you put out there is always going to come back to you.
Right. And I think communication is key, right? So right from the start, I'm like, hey, I'm going to 50-50. This is how it's going to work. This is your role. This is my role. I've learned that because a few of the partnerships that I've been in the beginning, it wasn't really clear who was doing what. You know, I had never partnered before, so I didn't know what that looked like. But along the way, now I know. Right from the start, you communicate everything, you write it down, you sign the paperwork, just so that, you know, you don't want to be standoffish, but at the same time, you want to be clear what the expectations are.
Yeah, 100%. So let's talk about some juicy questions with some money and all that, because I know everyone likes to hear about money, and you're clearly I'd say you're making a good amount. I don't think you're at minimum wage. Anyway, so first question with money, what are your different income sources right now?
So right now I make money. My active income is through flips and affiliates. So that's where I refer people out to other companies or like this mentorship. And it's honestly, I don't refer anything just to make money. I refer if it worked for me. And honestly, I tell people too, hey, if you have no money, here, start on Bigger Pockets. Like go attend these free webinars. There's a bunch of YouTube videos that you can watch to get started. But if you want to cut the learning curve, here's the companies that I've used. Here's the mentorship that I'm a part of, or the ones that I suggest depending on what you're looking for. So that's the affiliate route. And then I also have my rentals that make me the passive income.
Nice. So right now we're at the tail end of September, roughly just between all your income sources and equity that you've added to your net worth through rentals. Can you say roughly how much money you've made this year?
Probably close to, maybe 800,000.
Okay. That's
okay.
Yeah, no, that's a lot more than what you're making as an engineer.
Yes, definitely. Minus a zero.
Right, exactly. No, that is phenomenal. Wow. So you have 10 rentals between your short term and your long term. You're making 800 grand in the first 9 or 10 months of the year. Do you have any sort of goals you want to hit by the end of this year, whether they be financial or on social media? Because I feel like we had this conversation a year ago, and it sounds like you've already crushed all the goals that you had for the year, but we're not even in Q4 yet. So what's on your mind right now entering the final chapter of 2022?
I think what I want to do by year end is definitely like step up my YouTube content game, because that hasn't gotten a lot of attention from me. But not only that, I feel like just the networking aspect, like I want to be at more conferences, speak on more stages, like really test my own, go against my own fears of public speaking and making more connections. I feel like that means more to me than, reaching some sort of financial goal, because I've already gotten so far. That brings more value to me, and building newer relationships, closing on this RV park, potentially starting the construction of that. And really, I think what the future holds for me is maybe like starting a fund where I can be the capital raiser. So I thought about this deeply, like, okay, what is going to be my goals? Am I just going to focus on one sort of strategy, or do I just play one sort of role? And a lot of people say if you focus on one thing, right, you'll go way further. So instead of focusing on one asset class, like I want to buy, all these apartment buildings. I'm a part of syndications right now. Oh yeah, that's another thing. So I'm a part of a few syndications where I'm a part general partner. So we have a 110 unit in Austin, Texas, and a 263 unit in Florida, and a new build 12 unit short-term rental in Ocean Isle Beach, North Carolina.
Wow.
Forgot to mention that. Just a little tidbit.
Yeah, no big deal.
Right?
Hundreds of units. Like, oh yeah.
But those are like super passive, so I don't even really think about it. But for me, it's more so about focusing on the funds, because as you know, whenever you flip something, and if you're using private money, you pay them back, and then you got to, record a new loan for your next project. So I think that'll be an easier way to add value to other people's projects if they're ever to approach me. But really, I think I set a bunch of goals this year, and I hit blew past a lot of them.
Nice.
But one of them was to take a family vacation. So I'm hoping that my family will want to go on vacation with me in December,
Very
maybe
nice.
for Christmas and things like that.
Yeah, that's always a fun time. I mean, I like going out with my family and all that fun stuff. So a question that I had for you, and a lot of people ask, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? And I don't really like asking that question, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but 5 years ago, did you see yourself here where you are right now?
No, no
Exactly.
ways.
Right. So if I ask you, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? I mean, whatever you say is going to be way less than where you're actually going to be. So let's talk about something a little bit more nearsighted. I know you mentioned the syndication and the RV parks and all that fun stuff, but where do you see yourself 1 year from now?
I see myself definitely having more, maybe a bigger team. So right now I have a few people that help me with social media, that help me with admin tasks, a virtual VA. I have people that cold call for me and do follow-ups and acquisitions. But I feel like I would have a little bit, maybe a couple more hires that help me do things more efficiently. And then also getting into bigger projects that maybe, like I said, with the funding thing, raising funds and connecting with more people that are willing to jump on these bigger projects, or I can add value to that way, and being way more hands off.
That's fantastic. And you shared so many good nuggets, and I don't even want to call them nuggets because nuggets implies like small, you know?
Right.
You've shared a lot of gems on this podcast, and I guarantee you there's at least one person watching this right now. Maybe they're watching it right when it comes out, or maybe they're watching it on live, or maybe they're watching it a year after we post this. But there's going to be someone who feels like you were speaking directly to them the entire time. So, with that being said, what is one piece of advice you could, just off the top of your head, you could share to that one person who's watching this, who can relate to your story and wants to get into real estate, and maybe they're really, really inspired by what you just shared on this podcast? What would you say to that person?
I would say figure out your purpose and your passion and really dive deep into that. So, real estate necessarily wasn't my passion, but my purpose was to add value to other people or provide some sort of affordable housing and help people out that way. And so, even now that I'm shifting into these bigger apartment buildings and RV parks, I still have the ones that I own on my own personally that I feel like I can give back, or even through my flips, I give back that way to by selling to the first time home buyers. So really diving deep into your why, I feel like will help you get to that next step, because when I was working full time and just like, I didn't like my job, honestly. So that already gave me, a little bit of ways to be like, okay, I got to figure out something out else. But what really took me over the edge to quit my job was, one, being like, okay, I want to spend more time with my family. How do I do that? And then two, joining a mentorship that gave me the confidence to be like, you got this, right? Sometimes you need that hand holding, or that other person telling you that you can do it and giving you the confidence, who's way ahead of you, who's like, look, you can get here. And look at me now. I would have never imagined that I would be here in 3 years, have quit my job, have financial freedom, have own portions of apartment buildings, own an RV park or under contract, and own 10 rentals. Like that would have blown my mind if you would have told me that a few years ago. So definitely build that confidence and figure out, have that. You build that drive by knowing where you want to go or why you want it. You don't necessarily have to have a path to the end, but you have to keep that fire in you of why you're trying to do this.
That's super inspirational, and it kind of touches in with the final question that I was going to ask you, and you might have already kind of covered it as well. But I was just going to ask, are there any final thoughts or comments, anything that you want to leave out there? The stuff you said is just really good right now, so I'm not sure if that was it, but anything else?
I guess I could say is that kind of encompasses everything, is that you can build wealth while making an impact. Like, don't be scared to make money or think that it might change who you are. Money only amplifies what your morals and your integrities and what your values are. So if you make money and you decide to give back or you decide to help others, that's just amplifying what you already wanted to do, but you necessarily couldn't do that because you didn't have any money. So if you decide that you're going to make more money and then, just continue to fund yourself or just help yourself, then that's just who you are. But there are great people out there that are making money, that are making an impact and actually helping the community. So I would say just don't be scared to do that. Build wealth while making an impact, and, just do the right thing.
Love it. It sounds like that quote, and I don't remember it exactly, but gosh, I mean, I don't even want to misspeak, but it's something along the lines of like money isn't good or bad. It's just an amplifier of who you already are. You know, if you're greedy when you have little, if you're fortunate enough to receive a lot of money, you're going to be even more greedy. But if you're generous, right, and you're donating the last 10 bucks in your bank account and you become a millionaire one day, you're still going to be donating money. So I love that those were your final thoughts. Zasha, where can people find you and how can people connect with you on social media?
So I am very active on Instagram at Invest with Zasha. I also just started a website, investwithzasha.com. But those are the main places that you can find me. And always, I do have people that help me, but they let me know if there's somebody that they don't know how to answer or that they want me to answer, then I definitely, I still check. And it's crazy because a lot of people don't think that people with big accounts still check their DMs and things. They do. So just whenever you have a question, shoot it to me and I'll be sure to answer you.
Fantastic. Zasha, I really appreciate your time. And I know you're heading back to Hawaii pretty soon. So thank you so much for taking the time to let me annoy you for an hour or so. No, and I just want to keep saying thank you because I'm just really grateful for your time. And I think you shared a lot of really valuable information here today. So appreciate everyone watching this and we are out of here.
Aloha.